Hello and welcome to Endurance Minded. It's the podcast that aims to redefine what it means to reach our full potential by exploring how movement and mindset impacts our lives and how we can all work to show up as the best versions of ourselves. I'm your host, Taylor Thomas, founder at TEC, and before we get started, I've got an all call. If you're a coach or an entrepreneur in the health and fitness industry who's trying to grow your business without burning out, I want to personally invite you to apply for the Growth Circle. The Growth Circle is our business accelerator program at TEC, and it's designed specifically to serve providers like you in the health and fitness industry. People who are incredible at what they do, but they need a proven framework and real support to actually scale. Let's be real, running a coaching business can feel like a grind. You're juggling programming and client communication, marketing, admin work, and somehow you're still trying to grow your business. That's where the Growth Circle comes in. Inside the program, we help you nail down your ideal client and get really clear on what your offer is. We help you build a consistent lead gen process so you're not wondering where your next client comes from. We help you improve your sales skills without feeling salesy. And most importantly, create systems and support so that you're not doing it alone. You'll be a part of a driven community of other business owners in this space who get it. We host regular group calls, team intensives, mastermind sessions to make sure you're never stuck trying to figure it out in a silo. So if you're tired of winging it, if you're tired of trying to do it all by yourself, to recreate the wheel, figure out what levers to pull, what's broken and what's not, if you're ready to turn your passion into a business that actually works for you, I want to invite you to apply. You can find the link to the Growth Circle in our show notes. And I want you to really think about what's best for you and your business. I want you to think about how your business can really make an impact on the industry and how it can give you the life that you're excited about and make the money that you deserve, working with the clients that you love, spending time investing in the things that you care about and you're passionate about. So if this is a problem you're committed to solving and you want to take your business to the next level, again, click the link in the show notes. I can't wait to hear from you. Hello and welcome back. Super excited to get into today's episode. We're going to be talking about the messy middle. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is that is the space between when the impetus to take action occurs. So that's all the excitement, the motivation, the hopefulness, the goal setting, all of the things that get us started. And the end result, the outcome, so crossing the finish line, completing the project, getting the raise, getting the promotion, it's the space between both of those things. So it's the space between when we first start something and we get that external validation, we get that outcome-based goal. And the fact of the matter is that we spend the majority of our time in this proverbial messy middle. The hardest part of any endurance effort, whether it's in sport or business or life, is the middle part. It's when that initial motivation fades. It's when the finish line feels far away, and it's easy to question the process. So today, we're going to explore what it takes to stay committed when progress isn't obvious, when things are feeling messy, when we're feeling really far away from the finish line, when we're not sure what the next step is. We're going to break down what the mindset traps are. We're going to identify the challenges. We're going to talk about tangible ways to stay grounded and resilient in the messy middle so that you can still prioritize growth. So I'm going to go through 4 separate parts. We're going to set the stage. We're going to talk about some specifics, and we're going to get into some actionable takeaways and some shifts that you can make to actually align when you are inevitably in this place. Because again, this is where we spend the majority of our time. It is easy to set big and lofty goals. It is certainly easy to get excited about those. And it's really great when we cross the finish line. But all of the space in between is where we spend most of our time. And it's what separates success from failure. It's what separates those that reach their goals from those that don't, those that fall short of their full potential from those that move in the direction of reaching it. And so everyone celebrates the start and the finish, but we don't really talk about the middle. And that's why I want to zero in on this today. We even talk about the process a lot, but I want to get even more granular. I want to talk about what that actually looks like. I want to talk about the liminal space between the start of something and when we finish it, and the real challenges that come with being stuck in the middle part. And it's because it requires so much effort. You're doing the work, but it just feels like nothing is changing. It feels like no step is in any particular right direction. It feels like the sum total of the effort is not in alignment with what you thought it would be. It feels like it's not moving the needle. And that's because the middle is longer and harder than we typically care to recognize. At the onset of a goal, at the onset of an initiative, we think that we have a clear idea of the runway. We think we understand the work that is required. We think that we have a grasp of the effort and the input that's needed to reach the finish line and get to that outcome-based goal. But the fact of the matter is that we typically don't. It is typically longer and harder and more costly than we ever thought that it would be. And then we have to sit in this middle portion for so long with such a high level of unknowing that it is very, very hard to stay connected and stay grounded and stay committed to the path in front of us, committed to the goal that we set out to accomplish. So this episode is for anyone who's stuck between clarity and payoff. And I think those are the two best ways to kind of define the beginning and the end. At the beginning, you have, again, a high degree of clarity. You know exactly what you want. You're excited and fired up. You're committed. And then the payoff is the thing at the end, right? Again, it's the finish line. It's the win in our businesses and careers. It's a relationship. It's the wedding day. It's the, whatever that big shiny thing is at the end of the road, that is the payoff. So any time period between clarity and payoff is what we're talking about today. And if I could leave you with one thing, or if I could kick things off with a quote that I want you to hang on to, it's that endurance is really built in the silence between breakthroughs, right? The things that make exceptional people exceptional, the things that allow those that accomplish their goals, the people that we see out in the world that we're like, man, those people are crushing it. They're doing all these things. They're accomplishing goals. They're finishing the race. They're training. They're doing whatever it is. It is those individuals' particular skill set, which is their ability to manage and sit in the silence in between the breakthroughs. And let me be the first to say that in my experience, the breakthroughs are actually few and far between. They're not as frequent as we thought that they were, or that we think that they should be. And that's okay. It makes them really special. But in training, in life, in business, the breakthroughs are sparse. We put in a tremendous amount of effort to be able to experience a few breakthroughs. And that's okay. I think that's what makes it good. And that's why I want to talk about this today. So again, just remember that endurance is built in that silence between the breakthroughs, and that I hope that helps contextualize and compartmentalize when these breakthroughs actually occur, which again, in my experience, is truthfully not that often. And I think that's a good thing. It makes them that much more special. So let's talk about understanding the messy middle. So again, like I said, we're going to go through 4 parts. This is part 1, and I want to understand the messy middle. Let's set the stage, set the tone for what we're going to talk about today. And the middle it's long, it is quiet, and it is disorienting by design. So what does that mean? Long, like I talked about, it is longer than we typically imagined it would or should be. It's quiet. What does that mean? There's not a lot of praise. This is why the middle for so many people is challenging because there's not a lot going on. It's not very sexy. No one's paying attention. There's no real shiny thing that happened. There's no praiseworthy event. It is just us committing to forward movement at any cost. And that is a quiet place to be. And it's disorienting because we can't see the finish line. We lose sight of why we started, why we thought this was so important to begin with. We start to question ourselves: is the process even worth it? Is the cost too high? And that's just the way that the middle is laid out. That is kind of the formula. And why is this so hard? So what makes the middle hard? It's several different things. One, it is dramatically diminished external validation. So it is really easy to get out of bed in the morning when you know someone's there to pat you on the back, right? It's actually relatively easy to show up to race day, knowing that the promise of the finish line and the praise and the medal around your neck and the family at the end of the finish line and the Strava results and all the things are there waiting for you. It's easy to show up to a meeting at work when you've just hit your goal and the board is happy and investors are happy and your team is excited about you and they think you're doing a great job. When those things go away, it becomes dramatically harder to show up, right? When we're not maybe having our best day, when people aren't satisfied with us, when things don't feel is good, when our body hurts, when we're tired, when we're burning the candle at both ends. So diminished external validation in the middle is one of the things that I think makes this so challenging for most of us. Next is progress is no longer linear and it doesn't really feel visible, right? Meaning that we can't see the progress. We can't see the results of our input. And again, that's because the middle is long. We've lost sight of what actually is adding up to equal success. And progress isn't linear. When we're in the middle, there's lots of peaks and there's lots and lots of valleys, right? We're not stacking brick after brick, day after day, building the wall perfectly. We use these analogies that lure us into thinking that there is a linear aspect to the middle. And I think that is misleading. And I think that it is unfair, right? We talk about let's get 1% better every day. Let's, stack bricks, brick by brick. The fact of the matter is that we might stack 4 bricks only to lose 3. So our wall isn't continually built day after day. We go up, we come back, we learn, we retool, we refine. We have to stay connected to this middle section and redefine what progress actually looks like. The next thing that makes it hard is that the emotional fatigue, right? There's doubt and there is an erosion of our identity as individuals, right? We are very quickly linked from an identity perspective to our outcomes and our accomplishments. And when those outcomes and accomplishments aren't on our shirt sleeve, when they're not clear, when they're not right in front of our face, then it becomes very challenging to stay connected to these things. So we also get worn down emotionally. We doubt ourselves. Again, like I said, is it worth it? Is the cost too high? There is an emotional energy erosion to the middle space. And that is very hard. I'm not discounting the cost there in the energy drain, but that is, again, why it is so difficult. And we doubt ourselves. Again, just, is this worth it? This is so much harder than I thought it would be. Am I doing it right? Am I smart enough? Do I have the tools? Do I know the right people? Am I doing enough? Am I doing too much? The list goes on. Doubt really erodes our ability to focus on and to see progress in this messy middle. So how does this show up? I want to give you a few examples of where this might be showing up. And I'm going to talk about it through 3 different lenses, really primarily. We're going to talk about through your work or your business. We're going to talk about training, the physical aspects or your physical output, and your personal life. As any of you know that have listened to Endurance Minded, I see all of these things as interconnected. So we're always going to talk about the physical part of what we do. I think that what we do as athletes is intrinsically and inherently linked to our output in other areas of our lives. And then, of course, nothing happens in a vacuum. So if we're going to talk about one area, we're going to talk about all areas. So how does this show up when we're in the middle and we know that it's hard? Well, in business, it's plateaus. It is, starting to move in a direction, thinking that it's going to happen in the second quarter, and here we are in the first quarter of the following year, and it still hasn't happened yet. Right? We've plateaued. It takes longer to build momentum. It takes longer to get answers to questions. We see this also on client acquisition. So if you're in the business of acquiring clients, we see slow client growth. Right? We think that it's gonna be faster. We think that we have all the tools, and the fact of the matter is it just takes longer than we think. And then revenue stagnation. So if we're on an upward trajectory, if things are looking good, and then we start to plateau, or we fall back, or we have a dip, these are all part of the middle, right? So these are just a few examples of how this can show up in business. In our training, it can show up in the off season, right? So we're on the other side of an outcome-based goal. We still want to stay connected. We still know we have things to do, but we're really far away from that external validation, right? It's those dark and quiet months of winter. It's all the unsexy work that we need to do. It's mobility. It's stability work. It's strength training. It's pushing our bodies in ways that we're not comfortable with. It's training solo, indoors. It's a long way to the sexy race season, or the sexy days of being outside on a run in the summertime when everything feels great. Also during long build cycles, right? So stacking, slowly grinding towards big goals. This starts to feel pretty monotonous. And typically there's a lot of setbacks. There's a lot of cues that our body gives us that tells us that it's not responding the way we thought, right? Things need to slow down. We need to take more rest days. We need to tweak things. We're not ready for the volume that we thought we were. Whatever this is typically a grind. So again, this is just how this shows up in the middle when it comes to training. And then in our personal life, big impacts with our identity, right? Again, we are prone to link our identity to our outcomes and our accomplishments. When those aren't happening, it starts to erode our confidence in ourselves. Who are we? Am I good enough? Am I, as smart as I thought I was? And then just how we show up as leaders in our own lives, right? When we're in the middle, it feels like we don't have a tremendous amount of autonomy, that the effort that we're putting in is not necessarily in alignment with the results that we thought. So just starts to feel like we're bogging down in our personal lives. That's going to impact our relationship with ourselves, as well as our relationship with our others. Or with others. So a great quote that I love, just to back this up, is a quote from Einstein. He says, "It's not that I'm smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer." And I love this sentiment, is that I think so much, again, of success, and I mentioned this at the top of the episode, I think so much of success is just our ability to sit with the thing longer than most people. Right? Longer than we're comfortable, longer than we have the answers, longer than we have the energy or the motivation or the excitement. And if we do that, you almost can't help but be successful, because you just stay in it long enough to figure out the answers and to understand what it's supposed to look like. So I always love that quote from Einstein. And I think that when I'm in the middle, which again, we are for most of our lives, I like to come back to that quote. I think that's a great way to just kind of reframe and stay in it. So let's move on to the second part. Like I said, we're going to talk about 4 parts today. Part 2 is what actually moves the needle. So we talked about why the messy middle is hard. So now let's talk about what actually moves the needle in this time period. If it's a time period where we're going to spend a lot of our energy, a lot of our time, our focus, then it would be helpful to understand what actually makes things happen when we're in this middle section. And one of the things, and I think probably the most important thing, is systems, right? So you don't need motivation. You need a system or systems that set you up for success. So when we're in this time period, we tend to be very hard on ourselves about whether or not we are motivated. Now, we hear a lot of talk about motivation. I've talked about motivation at length on this podcast. And I'm not going to go into whether or not it's important, or we're not going to go into the discipline conversation versus motivation. But what I do want to lean in on here, or focus on here, is there is an opportunity for a systematization of how we process the information and how we ultimately can still identify wins and understand what progress looks like when we're in this time period. So one of the best approaches to starting to build a system is to understand that very, very small bouts of consistency are always going to beat massive bursts. So when we're in the middle, we tend to want to really prioritize speed as a commodity and as a measure of success. And speed is good. If you can move things faster, by all means. However, what that typically looks like is we move in these massive sprints, we wear ourselves out, we try to pull in tons of different information, try lots of different things, we're throwing spaghetti at the wall. We don't know exactly what's working, but we're giving it 125% of our effort, and then we burn out and we stop and we plateau, or we sink down below where we were before, rinse and repeat. And that's just a really, really tiring place to continually be. It also doesn't allow us to understand what the processes and systems are that are actually yielding results. Typically, these massive sprints are very disorganized, right? There's lots of input, lots of things, trying whatever we feel like can work, versus actually taking a beat and thinking about what does micro consistency look like, small efforts, little by little, and working to systematize that. So let's talk about some signs that you're actually growing, even if you can't tell it, if you can't see it. And they really are all over when we start to understand what our systems and processes are in this middle portion. So one of the things that I think is most notable, and it's really hard to pick up on unless you are aware of it, and that's why I'm going to say this, because I hope that it brings some awareness, is that you're navigating hard days with more awareness. Okay, what does that mean? More awareness about how you communicate, more awareness about how you show up, more awareness around how you still prioritize yourself, right? How you prioritize exercise, self-care, prioritize time with your family, right? So when hard days spin you out less and less, that's actually a sign that you're growing and making progress, even though it is slight, and even though it might not feel like, or might actually not be any notable progress in the direction of your goal. That still means that you are building systems and processes that allow you to navigate this middle in a way that is more productive. So just take a second to reflect and ask yourself if you're navigating hard days with more awareness. Next is your reactions are calmer and your process is tighter, right? So when things happen, when you get inputs that may have traditionally, like I said earlier, spin you out, you react more calmly. You know that you have the capacity and ability to navigate these things in a way that is going to be okay. And you're going to be successful because you know what the middle looks and feels like. You've been here before. You've built systems and processes. And then to that end, that process is tighter. So how you move from input to output is less reactive, right? So input comes in, something happens. Am I going to be reactive, or am I going to be calm? And I'm going to be able to navigate that. And so we build that process around how we move through different types of information, things that we can't control. And we fall back on our ability to show up, control the things we can control, and be consistent day after day. And next is you're asking better questions. You're asking better questions of yourself, and you're asking better questions of those around you. So examples of that are going to be, how can I communicate better? Right? That's a question I like to ask myself every day, right? This feels like this is really hard. This feels like this is having an outsized impact on my mood, on my emotional health, on my ability to stay focused, my ability to gain clarity. So am I communicating effectively? Is there something that I can do to mitigate this seemingly outsized response? What I've found is it almost always comes down to communication. So that's a question I ask myself all the time. And then you can ask better questions of others, right? Clarifying questions, right? What does this look like, right? What does support look like? This is what support looks like for me during this time period. When we ask better questions, we get better answers, right? The power of the question is the power of the answer. So again, largely based on communication here, and how we communicate with ourselves and how we communicate with others is our primary mechanism to move through the world. So if you can dial that in, then I think that you're going to see massive progress or massive results in this middle space. So let's talk about how to redefine this process. So how do we actually, again, make some real progress here? Well, I think we need to redefine what progress actually looks and feels like. First is energy management. So again, are you being proactive or are you being reactive, right? Are you having an outsized response emotionally or physically to the input? Or are you able to cope with that, process it, gain clarity, and move through in a way that is still productive? Your consistency in your behavior. Are you having dramatic swings in your mood? Are you angry one day? Are you depressed the next day? Are you happy for a second and then it falls off? Or are you able to cruise through? Now, I'm not saying that you should be completely unaffected by everything, but major swings in our behavior impact our ability to manage our energy, which is what really wears us down. So can we think about how to manage our behavior consistently? And then we're able to, this is a quote or a phrase taken from strength training, time under tension. If you've been in strength training or you've done strength training, you've researched it all, you've heard of TUT, T-U-T, time under tension. And that is a time that in which the muscles are loaded and the rep that we are in is controlled. And we can talk about literally how long are you under tension? 3 seconds, 8 seconds? Are we taking 5 seconds to go down on that squat and 5 seconds to come back up? Are we creating a lot of time under tension? And that's really the way we can quantify how our bodies will react and ultimately progress as a result of loaded strength training. It's the same thing in our lives. How are we handling time under tension? Are we able to remain in tension longer, right? Can we sit in that discomfort? Can we sit in that loaded experience? Can we, what used to be, a half a day, now can we sit in that for a week? Can we process it? Can we understand it? Can we control our energy and our behavior despite that time under tension? And if you find yourself able to do that, or if you're not able to do that, this is one of the ways that you can really redefine what progress looks like. So the 3 ways that you can do that is you can really work to control your energy. You can make sure that your behavior is consistent. You can check that. And then you can think about your time under tension. Are you able to navigate tense periods in your life for longer with more control and less energy output? So I'm going to give you, this is an exercise that I use to reflect. So the best way to navigate this middle section is to think about or to define clearly what our wins are. So I asked myself, it's called the 3 wins reflection. And the questions are, what felt aligned today? So what was in alignment with who I am, how I want to show up, and what I want to accomplish? What felt aligned today? Where did I show up with intention? So where was I proactive? Where was I able to control my energy and my behavior? Where was I able to sit in that tension more comfortably? And what was one small thing I followed through on? Right. So again, this is really a great turning point. So instead of the big shiny thing at the end of the road, what's one thing I followed through on? Right. I didn't crush the major goal today. I didn't hit that benchmark. But what did I follow through on? I had a great conversation. I accomplished a small task that I know is going to move me towards this big thing that I want to do. Whatever that is, those 3 questions have been really powerful for me, and I would encourage you to think about that on a daily basis. I write them in my journal where I keep notes for my week. And it's just a good way to wrap up the day and to really work that muscle of redefining what progress looks like and being able to identify small wins in the midst of that very long middle path. All right. So now part 3, let's talk about our identity in this time period and some mindset anchors that we can use to understand or to set ourselves up for success in a way that is better. So, few things that I want you to ask yourself is, what kind of person am I becoming by continuing to show up? Right? So what I want you to think about here is how can we link your identity to progress and to growth in a different way by shifting your mindset to asking different questions and defining what success looks like in a different way while we are stuck in this section, in this middle, that we can't really speed up, right? We can't really do anything about the middle. So what we can do is we can control how we show up and how we think about it. So that's what I want you to put yourself there right now. And I want you to think, what kind of person am I becoming by continuing to show up? Right? So I know this is hard, and I know that it's long, and I know that the cost is high, and we thought we'd be there by now. But what am I gaining from continuing to show up? Right? Am I gaining the ability to, again, like I just talked about, those 3 ways to redefine progress? Am I gaining the ability to sit in tension? Am I gaining the ability to control my behavior? Am I gaining the ability to think about my energy management, to be more calm, to be more stable, to be more clear? So, what kind of person am I becoming? And identify that. And if the answer is not what you want, then it gives you a clear path, right? If the answer is, I'm not becoming the person that I want to be by continuing to show up, by continuing to sit in this messy middle, then what adjustments can you make? And so this feels like a good reframe and a good reset for me, and a bit of a North Star. So the middle really challenges your identity more than it challenges our timeline. Because again, inevitably, the longer we sit in something, the more doubt that we have. So we might think that, oh, I'm just mad because this thing is taking too long, right? I'm mad because it's harder than I thought that it would be. I'm frustrated because I thought I'd be there by now, right? That's a schedule based, that's a time based parameter. And while that's a very real thing, at the core of that, at the root of that, is the fact that it is challenging our identity much, much more. What that really means is, I thought that I was good enough to make this happen faster. I thought that I was strong enough to be more fit by now. I thought that I was doing enough to be further along in the process. I thought that I had the discipline to be somewhere else. I thought that I knew the right people or could make the right phone calls, right? So what that really says is, it says we're making that mean something about us. That's why that's really, really hard, right? So again, just remember that the middle really challenges our identity more than it challenges those time-based parameters that we think that we're more worried about. There's a root there that we want to recognize and then try to undo and provide some different parameters so that we can think differently about this time. So what we want to do is we want to shift those identity-based goals, right? We want to make sure that the goals that we set mean less about us and more about our ability to refine our process so that we can redefine progress. So when we anchor in identity-based goals, not outcome-based goals, we have an opportunity to really recognize wins along the way. Now, the key here is that those identity-based goals have to be things that are positive about us, right? So we can't, again, negatively link our outcomes to our identity. What we can do is we can say, man, I'm really good at navigating stressful time periods amidst lots of pressure, in spite of not really seeing a clear path to success, and this timeline being much longer than I thought that it would be. And when we link our identity to goals in that way, that becomes a very, very positive thing. So one of the questions I asked myself is, I asked earlier, and I wanted you to think about this, so I'll reiterate it. What kind of person am I becoming by continuing to show up? The next question I like to ask myself is, I'm the kind of person who. So I'm the kind of person who what? I'm the kind of person who shows up even when it's hard. I'm the kind of person who's impatient. I'm the kind of person who doesn't deal with setbacks very well. I'm the kind of person who gets frustrated when things don't go my way. Right? What is that narrative for you? And if it's not what you want it to be, then I want you to think about what the shift could be. If it is good, that's great. Continue to use that as a bit of a mantra, right? When you're in the middle, I'm the kind of person who what? And the answer to that can change based on where you're at in the middle. So, last but not least, let's talk a little bit about how to navigate comparison and impatience in the age of social media. So, it goes without saying that when we are in the messy middle, it is easy to be impatient. Certainly with high achievers, high performers, speed is an inherent marker of success. How fast did I get it done? I want it done yesterday. I thought I'd be there by now, right? Speed is inherently and intrinsically linked to how we define success. And it's easy to be impatient. It is also easy to compare ourselves. We have more access now to people and to external-based goals, external wins. We have more access to external validation as well via social media, likes, shares, kudos, thumbs up, whatever it is, than we've ever had before. And so we've been programmed and conditioned to respond to that. So that makes this middle very, very hard because it puts a spotlight on who we are, where we're at, and the fact that we're not where we want to be. And if I can give you any advice, it is that you have to remember that comparison is the thief of joy. And I know that you've heard that. That, of course, is not my quote. I don't know who said that first. And while that's easier said than done, it really is incumbent upon us to focus on what we're doing, where we're at, not where anyone else is. It doesn't matter. We are all different. How we move through the world is different. How you prepare for a goal is different. If we're talking about fitness, how your body responds to training load is different. What works for somebody doesn't work for somebody else. Your life is different. Your stress is different. Your priorities are different. Your goals, your mind, your body, your emotional capacity, the list goes on. There is literally no reason to compare yourself to someone else because there is no world in which you are the same as that person. And so comparing yourself in any capacity to anyone else is truly robbing you of any joy that can come from the process and the progress that you're making. And that is much easier said than done. It is hard. It comes at us every single day. But it really is incumbent upon us to focus on us. Nothing good comes from comparison. Nothing good comes from wondering why something that worked for someone else isn't working for us, wondering why something that took somebody else 1 year is taking us 2 years, because that's the way it is, right? We're all different. There's nothing we can do about that. And so I know that is hard to do, but if nothing else, just as a reminder, I want you to really remember that nothing good comes from comparison. And it is the thief of joy. And when we're talking about goals and we're talking about reaching our full potential, being stuck in the middle, the comparison trap is the thing that gets in our way the most. And I hope that you leave this podcast with some tools to think differently about what that actually is and how that shows up in your life. And so I'll leave you with an opportunity for this particular part to rewrite your identity statement. So I've given you 3 opportunities to reframe your identity and your mindset. The first one was, what kind of person am I becoming by continuing to show up? That's the first question. Answer that. If it's not what you like, look for opportunities to change it. Next question is, I'm the kind of person who. I'm the kind of person who what? Right? Answer that question. Next. And finally, I am someone who blank, even when blank. I am someone who blank, even when blank. Right? Those are the 3 questions that I want you to answer honestly, and I want you to use them to reframe what that looks like from an identity and a mindset perspective. I am someone who stays focused and consistent even when I can't see the finish line. I am someone who gets upset and derailed easily by the slightest inconvenience or when things don't go as planned, right? So those are 2 separate examples. So it doesn't have to look pretty. And I want you to answer it honestly, and then I want you to look for opportunities for adjustment based on what we've talked about today. All right. So now let's talk about final part. How can we build endurance for the long term, right? How can we actually develop a skill so when we are in the middle, again, right? Maybe you're there right now. You probably are, right? The moments of success are so finite that I really want you to hear that we live in the middle. So this is not some like proverbial most of you listening right now, unless you are literally in the middle of accomplishing a goal that you've set out. You're crossing a finish line. You close the deal. You got the promotion. The relationship is where you want. Unless you're there right now, you're in the middle. And so we need to talk about how to actually build the endurance. How do we actually have the skill set to navigate what is ultimately our life? Our life is the middle, 99.99% of it. So one way to do that is to build rituals that don't rely on motivation. So again, I don't want to go super deep into the motivation thing here. But again, systematize. What are the things that you can do in your life? We've talked about many of them today. What are the things you can do in your life that don't rely on motivation? All right, that don't rely on this seemingly heroic effort to move the needle forward, to do the thing, to get the job done. And those things, I think I would encourage you for some of them to be fun, right? What are rituals that don't rely on motivation? Well, some rituals should be exciting. For me, cooking dinner with my wife, that's an anchor. I do it every night, and it's exciting. It brings me joy. It brings me mental clarity. It allows me to focus on something else. It allows me to spend time doing something with someone that I care about. Right? Another one is exercise. Now, I don't feel like exercising most days, but the ritual of committing to exercise is something that I enjoy. Now, I know that's different for everyone, but I want you to find your rituals. Find your rituals that you enjoy doing, that don't, and use those as anchors. Use those as cornerstones and build your day and your life around those things. Then I want you to think about how to build trust with yourself. Right? So if we have small wins and we add in honesty around what those wins mean, how we compartmentalize them, what we make them mean about ourselves, that's always going to be greater than hype. That's going to be greater than the pat on the back, than the finish line, than the big shiny object, because that's something we get to have every single day. right? We get to have small wins. We understand clearly what those wins mean about us. We allow them to positively impact our identity, how we feel about ourselves. And that's gonna keep us in a place where we can trust ourselves. We see the wins. We know we're good enough. We know we're on the right path. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's taken too long. Yes, the cost is high. All the things. I got it. I trust myself. I can do it. Right. So this is another way to build endurance. Right. You have to build internal trust. Your internal North Star has to be so strong and so clear that you know that you can't help but move in the right direction, even though it's taking longer than you thought, even though you can't see the finish line. Next way to build endurance is to protect your enthusiasm, right? It's easy to lose steam. It's easy to burn out. Again, we get really excited at the beginning. That's where all the enthusiasm is front loaded. The key is, can you be a person that maintains that enthusiasm in spite of the setbacks, in spite of the adjustments to the timeline, in spite of things not going the way that you thought they would? And so the best way to do that, one, is to set boundaries. Set boundaries with yourself, set boundaries with others. Next is to rest. Enthusiasm is an energy expenditure. If you want to keep excited about something, if you want to remain enthusiastic, you have to rest. You have to have the energy to be enthusiastic. It's not a given that just because that thing at the end of the road is sexy that you're going to stay enthusiastic about it. It requires energy. You have to rest. And then all of that, do energy audits. I've talked about this on previous podcasts. Take stock. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Show me your calendar and I'll show you what you prioritize. What I mean by that is show me where you're putting your energy and I will tell you why you're getting the results that you're getting. And I don't want to minimize the effort required to do all these things and the moving parts of life and all the ups and downs and highs and lows. But what I'm telling you is that where you're putting your energy is why you're getting the returns that you're getting. Right? If you're not putting your energy into rest, that's why you feel tired. If you're not putting your energy into building rituals that don't rely on motivation, that's why you feel burnt out. That's why you've lost enthusiasm. If you're not carving out time for relationships and things outside of work and training, that's why these things feel like a chore. Right? Where you put your time reflects how you show up in the world and how you feel. So you have to protect your enthusiasm. You have to do an energy audit. What can you control? Where are you putting your energy? What can you say no to? These things are important, right? We get back what we put out. So if we're not getting the results that we want, it's on us, right? We have to control where we put our energy. And next, and probably most importantly, is that who you're around determines whether you stay the course. I'm sure you've all heard this, right? We're the sum total of the 5 people we spend the most time with. There is probably no truer statement. If you do not have people around you that support your goals, or if you are around people that are derailing your goals, then it is going to be very, very hard to stay the course. So who you're around determines whether you stay the course, whether you can stay in the middle. Those people erode our confidence. They erode our confidence in ourselves. They erode our confidence in the process. They erode our confidence in whether the goal is even worth it at all. All right, so make sure that the people you're around are actually helping you stay the course, not trying to pull you off of it. So, just to recap, how do we actually do this? How do we build endurance to stay in the middle, which again is our life? Next, build rituals that don't rely on motivation, right? I'd encourage you for some of those things to be focused on joy. Next, build trust within yourself, right? Recognizing those small wins, being honest about the fact that it took a lot of effort to create that small win. Even though it's small, it still takes effort, right? That's always going to be better than the pat on the back, than the thumbs up, than the kudos, than the crossing the finish line, because that sticks with us. That's a skill set. That's not fleeting. Next, protect your enthusiasm. Again, it is not a given that we stay enthusiastic even if the goal is exciting. So we have to set some boundaries, we have to prioritize rest, and we need to do some energy audits. Where are we putting our time? Right? Where we allocate our time is going to reflect the outcomes that we get. Next is who you're around determines if you stay on the course. So make sure that the people around you are supporting your ability to stay the course and to stay focused and to stay committed and to align those small wins with a positive identity and honesty about who you are and your ability to stay focused, stay clear on what your goals are. And that is going to be a huge piece of the puzzle. So that's our 4 parts. Quick takeaways. Growth often feels like nothing is happening until it does. So nothing happens, and then movement, right? And that's just a function of committing to the time, committing to the process, committing to the middle long enough to learn the skills, to be the person, to change our mindset, to connect with the right people, all the pieces that have to fall into place. Just being there long enough for progress to actually happen. Right? That's the parable of overnight success. Right? Well, it only took me 10 years to be an overnight success. Right? Nothing happens. Boom, it blows up. And then everybody pays attention. Well, no, what we didn't see is all of the middle in between. Right? All of the messy parts. All the sleepless nights. All the tired days. Right? So nothing happens until it does. The middle will really test your faith in the process. It'll test your identity, and it'll test your why. And that's why it's so important to understand what this actually is supposed to look and feel like, how to develop skills that allow us to stay in the middle, because it is not an easy thing to navigate, and it will test you. It will test you time and time and time again. And next, endurance during this time period, and endurance in life, it's not about speed. It's about staying in it even when you're not excited. So I want you to use consistency as a measure for success, not speed. If I'm training for a particular event, I'm not interested in how fast I get fit. My measure of success is the ability to stay in it even when I'm not excited, even when it's hard, even when I feel beat up. Do the things that aren't sexy. Stretch, mobilize, sauna, cold, sleep, eat well, drink enough, right? All the things that I know add up to success. When I don't feel like it, when I'm not excited, I don't want to plan my meals. I don't want to pay attention. I don't want to prep my stuff. I don't want to, whatever it is. Endurance is not about speed. It's about staying in it when you're not excited. So what I want you to do, I want to leave you with a bit of homework. This week, I want you to write down an area of your life. It could be business, could be personal, could be physical, the training aspect, where you feel stuck in the middle. And I promise you, we're all there. No one is reaching their penultimate goal in all these areas of their life right now, today. So I want you to pick an area of your life where you feel stuck in the middle. Then I want you to ask yourself, what would it look like to trust the process for 30 more days? Show up, even when it's quiet, even when it feels dark, even when you feel alone, and just trust the process. So write that down. What's the area that you feel stuck in the middle right now? And then ask yourself and answer the question, what would it look like to trust the process for 30 more days? And then I want you to show up, even when it's quiet, especially when it's quiet, and focus on the middle and doing the middle really, really well. So, as always, I hope that was helpful, insightful. Hope you can find some very real takeaways here. I hope that you wrote down some of these questions, that you ask yourself them honestly, or you answer them honestly, and that they help you actually move forward in a way that feels productive and meaningful. As always, you can find us on enduranceMinded.com. Leave us a message. Let us know what you think, what's working. We can celebrate your wins. Let us know what you're struggling with, and love to hear from you there. And last but not least, rate, subscribe, and share. If you like this podcast or any of our other ones, rate it on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe so you can be alerted to new episode every other week. We launch on Tuesdays. And share an episode with a friend, with a colleague, with somebody who needs this. The goal is that there's true value here, and that it helps everyone move in the direction of their full potential in a little way. It's a little bit more meaningful, and maybe a little bit easier. So until then, I'll see you next time on Endurance Minded.